What's up, everyone, and welcome to welcome to Shared Save the Game Media's weekly gaming discussion podcast. I almost said welcome to Save the Game Media because I've been recording quite a few videos in the last few weeks, and that's how I intro those videos. Those are on the channel if you want to go see me not mess up. But this is your weekly gaming discussion podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all about those Xbox shake-up moves. I don't even know what you call them. Everything going on at Xbox. We also have a breaking story that PlayStation might be going away from PC. So we will touch on that as well. Before we get to that, I got to introduce my co-host hanging with me every week, Sam Heaney. How are you, my friend?
I mean, what a hell of a week, you know. We did last week, and we talked about Blue Point, and I was like, things can't get any worse. And then the next day, straight after we were done recording, practically just bam.
Yeah. I like I like when they drop news on Fridays because then we have to wait a really long time to talk about it.
That's
And
right.
that's not frustrating at all.
Yeah, and as we all know, it's only good news that they drop on Fridays. It's always good news. So
everything in the game industry is good news. What are you talking
apparently,
about?
yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I'm generally doing quite well. I'm still busy as always, but I've been playing a fair number of games. I've been sort of dabbling around this week, dipping my toes into lots of stuff, so I feel a bit rejuvenated. So yeah, doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great. Work is going fine. A little boring, which could be a
Sure.
good thing or a bad thing depending. But we're getting through. I got a 3-day weekend because I have every other Monday off. So I'm just looking forward to relaxing, playing some games. Maybe maybe I jump into that marathon server slam.
Oh,
I don't know if I will, but maybe
you didn't
an
get into
option.
Horizon Hunters Gathering?
I didn't apply. I did
Oh,
apply to Killzone, and they put out that new trailer, which we're not going to talk about. But you didn't like the trailer for Kiln, the new one? No?
God bless, you know? God bless.
All right. Well, why don't we get through housekeeping so we can dive right into the news and what games we're playing? So this is Shared Save. As I said, we are live every Thursday right here on youtube.com/Save the Game Media. If you can't catch us live, post every Sunday on your favorite audio platform of choice. While you're over there, please, if you could leave us a review, it does help us greatly. If you are hanging out in the chat with us or watching the VOD after the fact, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, help share it out, tell everyone. All right, because we are probably going to be here for a while tonight. All right, just get some people in the chat. I want to hear your thoughts as we're going through it as well. If you want to support us even further, get early audio access to all of our content and exclusive bonus shows like the monthly Q&A. I do the exclusive Shared Save episodes. Sam and I will be recording this weekend, which we need questions for. So if you're in the Discord, drop some questions, topics, whatever you want us to discuss. Go over to patreon.com/Save the Game Media. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current supporters. So thank you to Sam Hall, Alpaca Tom, Rick Davis, Silkenit, Dave Harp, David Hotright, Lillian, Marcus O'Neill, Brendan Myers, aka The Winter Gamer, Nikolai Knight, Fabulous Brianna, Brandon, Black Wyver, David Burdett, Ninglebomb, and Savoy Prime. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. Sam, there's no time like the present. What games you've been playing?
A lot, Kev. A lot.
I see that on the list here.
So I've wrapped up the Avatar coverage, so that's out of the way. That's done. Thank frick for that. I've been putting a few more hours into Sons of Sparta. Opinion hasn't really changed. Just sort of like a decent Metroidvania, nothing special, nothing great. But it is, as consensus is seeming to indicate, it does get better the more you play it and the more abilities you unlock. So looking forward to finishing that one up. I'm enjoying where the story seems to be going, but we'll see whether they stick the landing. And then Kev, we've just got a smorgasbord of random things. Okay. So first off, we've got H-rot or hrot. I don't know quite what the definition is. It's a very artistic, pixelated boomer shooter. Very basic, very sort of Metro, very Russian inspired. Lots of people in gas masks and little hobgoblin things running around with toxic vat chemical barrels and things like that. Just a good time kill. I've been playing that on the Steam Deck. Good amount of fun. Then I've dove into a new uh, as I usually do. I do puzzle games with my dad.
Mhm.
Our latest one, TR49.
I've heard about this game from a friend of the show, Drellish, over there at Tiny Game Chronicles.
Yeah,
He was a big believer in this game.
yeah. It's quite. I mean, it's very unique in the sense that you are. I can't quite put the pieces together yet, but you are essentially given a computer and almost like a flipboard of letters and numbers, and you have to figure out what entries to input on that flipboard. It then brings up these documents, and you're compiling like a codex of things and finding out all the links between the people that it references.
Mm,
And very Return of the Obra Dinn coded in the sense of like you are essentially just filling out a database with information, and all the information is there. You just have to figure it out and find it.
mhm.
So that's scratching a brain itch for us. Only a couple of hours in there. Another one, not me and my dad, just me this time.
Just another game in the long list. Yeah.
Another one that I can't really pronounce, Horripillant.
Where are you
Um,
finding this stuff?
so I actually heard about this because Bloodworth from Easy Allies, he shifted
Yeah,
working
he's
part
in
time.
PR now or something, right?
Yeah, PR for like a publisher, relatively small publisher. And I saw that he was posting about this. I was like, that looks kind of interesting. I'll see what this is. So it's an idle clicker, right? Which in and of itself, not that exciting, the cookie clickers,
Mhm.
the whatevers of the world. But what this is, it's a procedural dungeon crawler thing. And you're going back and obviously you're collecting resources automatically as you play. And there is like I don't want to spoil too much just in case people are interested in playing it, but there are like inscription level layers of like mystery and puzzles that you can solve whilst you're playing that you don't even realize are there until you sort of stumble upon them. There's like seemingly levels of meta game going on. I'm not quite sure how deep it goes, but it's much more than just an idle clicker, which I think is quite cool. Um,
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Steam right now. It's very. I feel like this is it's very retro inspired. I guess I should say.
yes,
Like this is a you don't even need a graphics card to play it. Like I feel like
play it on
my
a potato.
yeah my graphing calculator in high school could have played this game.
Yeah. But the art style works very well, and I think that it sort of adds into some of this more sort of eldritch horror-y type elements of you can't sometimes quite tell what you're looking at um, because of the art style. And I think that adds into the sort of eeriness. It is kind of spooky. I mean, there's a big face on the splash art for the game,
Hmm.
bit of a spooky face, and that's a pivotal entity or character in the game so far. So having fun with that, playing that in the background, just letting it run and tick up resources whilst I'm working throughout the day, that kind of thing. And then a splattering. I'm not going to go too deep because we've got plenty to talk about, Kev.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I've done a number of Next Fest demos this week.
All right, okay.
Um, and a few I just want to shout out. Vampire Crawlers, as you would expect.
Is
The next,
is it as good as Vampire Survivors?
that's where I'm not quite sure yet.
Okay.
I think it has the potential to be, but with the scope of the demo and what I've played of it, I'm not entirely sure how much depth there is in terms of
Hmm.
like build crafting and things like that. That positive early signs suggest that it will be, but I can't speak definitively on whether there will be if there isn't just like one broken build that you sort of put together through your run. I hope that isn't the case. I hope it is a bit more varied and malleable. But a lovely spin on the Vampire Survivors sort of genre and presentation. So I think if you like Vampire Survivors, as weird as it sounds to say, I think you probably will also like this, despite it being a very different game,
I figured
type
as
of game.
much. It
Yeah,
looks like the dopamine rush that I'm looking for from
for
Vampire
sure.
Survivors.
All the
Like,
visual flourishes as well,
yeah,
and yeah,
it's not one of those games where I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to play Vampire Crawler. So like, I can't wait for a release date and like a jump in day one. It's like I know there's gonna come a time when I don't really have anything to play right now, but the game's out, and I'm like, I'm gonna play this, and then just
yeah.
like stare at a screen for 30 minutes at a time.
Yeah. Another one, Kev. I didn't actually write it down, but I remembered that I played it this week. I did it. I succumbed to what we were discussing.
No,
I
I thought you were
jumped.
showing so much restraint.
I tried, Kev, but then I just kept watching the videos of it, and I couldn't help myself. So I had to play just a little bit of Recoin,
Hmm.
and I can see my free time sailing off into the horizon.
Yep, yep.
It's going to be bad, Kev. I said to you it was going to be bad, and it's going to be bad.
It's
So
the coin pushing raccoon game.
yes, sort of roguelite elements to it as well.
It's
It's
have you seen the demo impressions? Because it's getting very good reception. The demo.
yeah.
Maybe guys, listen. If you're listening, maybe we'll have some review coverage for said game in the next month or so. If that's something you're looking forward to. This year's Balatro, I'm calling it. I'm shooting my shot. This year's
I
Balatro.
can definitely see it being that for sure. I think it has that potential. And then the other two, Letters Lost. Not much to say about this because I have only really just started the demo. But it's another sort of deduction game where you're in a letter delivery room and you're having to figure out addresses and people and trying to do some mystery of what's going on. But it's been on my watch list for a long time, so I'm looking forward to playing that demo more fully. And the other one, Eternal Life of Goldman.
Another game I've been hearing a lot of positive things about, and I think you picked it up at our fantasy critic, didn't you?
And you counterpicked it.
Yeah, I did.
You
That's
did.
from what I'm hearing, that might have been a mistake. Yeah.
To your credit, I will say the demo didn't like blow me away,
Okay.
but I think it met my expectations of it being sort of a blend of the charm of, I mean, and stick with me, the charm of like a plucky squire
Mm-hmm.
mixed with the visual flourish of a Cuphead. And I think that it has the platforming potential based on, or I should say, depending on how fleshed out the mechanics become, to be something quite special. But it could be one of those games that presents very well in a short
Mm-hmm.
demo, but over the course of a full game, depending on how long it is, it doesn't really, stick the landing. But I'm impressed with what I've played thus far.
All right. Wink, wink. Another one, maybe for coverage. Just I'm shooting our shots here. All right. I got some feelers out there
You're on the
for
grind.
quite a few games. I will say that. No, this one is one that I've been hearing a lot of praise about. Heard someone describe it, and they were like, "Yeah, it's like a series of mini Metroidvanias." And I was like, when you say it like that, it sounds like Shinobi's setup, but it isn't it's not an action platformer like Shinobi. This is more of a 2D platformer, yeah?
Yeah, you're sort of like stomping on enemies in the same way you
Yeah.
would a Mario or something.
Mhm.
It's nothing complex.
Silken, it says you should try Grime too.
I haven't heard of that, but I will look it up shortly. I did just see something I wrote down that I forgot to mention, Kev. The other
Mhm.
demo,
Yes, I was waiting
Armitus.
for this one. Yes, the from the acclaimed developers behind Godfall.
Yes, yes. But this is. I think we both had a positive
We
reaction when
did.
we saw this in whatever showcase it was
eh,
in.
I think it was the Xbox partner
That sounds
preview.
right.
I think it was either closing or opening the show, and I know I was like, it kind of gives me like Returnal meets like Outriders vibe, like the aesthetic. I think it's co-op if I remember correctly. I can't remember if it's
Yes,
like I don't know if it's a roguelite. I can't remember
it
exactly.
is. Yeah,
Maybe that's where I got the Returnal from. But
yeah.
demo, I didn't know there was a demo.
Yeah, I you know how much I love Returnal. So it has a very high bar to clear. It doesn't clear that bar. But I will say I could be on board.
Hmm.
I think that it does enough to replicate Returnal. I mean, it's obviously not a bullet hell
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
one, but it's far more zone based. So I mean, I guess in some ways that is similar to Returnal because you have the rooms in Returnal, um, but you essentially walk through like a sort of faded portal, and you enter like a little section of a map that has enemies that spawn in, and you basically have to then kill all of those enemies to progress, which is different to Returnal.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Um, and besides that, it's basically identical. There are like special abilities that you have, which I guess swap in for like the alt fire on weapons in Returnal. And that could be compelling. I I thought that the zone-based, like, room thing that you have to clear out was interesting. I don't know if I like it. Um, but I mean, it ran well. It
Mhm.
looks good for like a double A take on Returnal. And there is a story there, like forward facing, so that could be good. But it's probably one of those where I sort of wait for reviews and maybe a sale.
I think it's coming to Game Pass if I remember correctly.
Who's on that
So,
anymore, though? You know,
I mean, just pop in your credit that you have in your account for PC Game Pass, and then you
ask
play it,
Copilot to boot it up,
and
and
then
you're all
you
good.
then you cancel,
Yeah,
and then you get your money back, and then you repeat the process.
that's right.
No, I'm interested, but it's definitely not one I'm like counting down the days and
Yeah.
like, oh man, I'm really excited. Like that's a deep discount or a subscription service play for sure.
So I'm looking at the trailers for Grime 2. I like what I'm seeing.
You
Another
indie
Metroidvania.
folks. A lot of Metroidvanias. A lot of
There are.
Metroidvanias. Mainly in the indie space, I've noticed. They love their Metroidvanias. It might be maybe something to do with like smaller budgets, and it's like a way to get like a large amount of gameplay out of like a small amount of like assets for like a map.
Yeah, I guess so. That makes sense.
Uh, well, I have been playing quite a few games, not nearly as many as you, but I have beat two of these on my list.
Oh,
So I will start with the one I haven't beat, and that is the friend slop game RV There Yet, which I have been playing with my brother and a few of our friends. And I got to tell you, Sam, this might be my favorite friend slop game.
whoa.
I think I enjoy this more than Peak. I think
Damn.
I think behind all the friend slop, like, oh, it's low quality graphics, it's simple thing. Like, there's a pretty good puzzle game here, to be honest. Except it's you and four of
Huh.
your friends trying to figure out the puzzles.
Okay.
Because a lot of the puzzles are like, so essentially, you have a person that needs to drive the RV
Mm,
along this path, and the path gets it'll get smaller, so you have to do like really tight turns, or they'll put obstacles in your way, like, oh, the bridge is out here, how do you get across? Oh, well, you can like set up like planks, and you got to line them up with the wheels, and like, but then it gets more complicated. Like, you'll be having to take the RV up like makeshift elevators,
mm,
and standing on buttons to like raise platforms so it can go over things, like hitting these jumps that you got to hit at really tough speed to fly across. And meanwhile, the whole time your RV can only take so much damage, so you got to be collecting resources to keep its health up, keep your health up, because there's like bears and wildlife that can attack you. It's got some jank because it is a friend slop game, but
sure.
I'm having a good time with it. You can save your runs, so I think we're at like
Oh, that's
checkpoint.
good.
Yeah, we're at like checkpoint 8 out of, I think there's 17, so we're almost halfway through the game. But it is like every kind of biome. Every time you get past a checkpoint, it's like a new biome, new challenge. So right now
Mm,
we're in like these mines where it's pitch black and you can't really see anything. So you got to like use flares to try to like make the path. I don't know. It's got all the laughs. You can pick your friends up and chuck them crazy distances, like yeet. So I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I know it came out last year and people were talking about then, but I'm just getting to it and I'm having a blast.
it's been on my watch list for a long time, so maybe I will have to dive in if it's got your endorsement.
Yeah, it's certainly if you get a group of people together. I'm bummed because I think like 6 players would be the sweet spot for this one. It's
Mm,
it's 4 max, but like if you could get 6 here, I think that would be phenomenal.
awesome.
The next game I played and beat today is Neva.
Never.
Yeah, a game I never thought I would play.
Hey.
Okay, that's my only one. So this is obviously from the developers of Grease, whatever, however you want to say it. And I particularly, I thought that game was fine, like very overhyped from what people were telling me. Like the way people talk about it, they're like, oh man, I went on a spiritual journey with that game with the visual. I'm like, it was fine. It had some annoying puzzles. Like none of the things that bothered me about that game are in this game.
Okay.
I think this is a seismic improvement over Greece. You have a cute little animal companion the whole time that you actually are encouraged to like form a bond with through gameplay, through story. Um, you can use them to solve puzzles and in combat encounters because this game adds combat. Your character can roll, jump through the air, has a sword. So you have boss fights, you have encounters you have to get through. And then the puzzles aren't annoying. They're like fun and simple, and you don't have to do a million of them to progress. It's a very short game, just like Greece was. But I just found this game from a story perspective. Visuals are still really nice. That was never in question. But like story hit way harder than me. Music's great. Everything about this is exactly what I wanted Greece to be.
Awesome. Is it one of those things where because they just announced the prologue thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you're interested in playing now that you've played the main game?
I don't think so. From what I'm
Okay.
reading, that's like one level too.
Right.
Like it's a very short thing. It's only $5, I understand, but it's I personally don't feel I need a prologue. Like this game
Sure.
kind of has a prologue already, so I don't know. I feel very satisfied with like my journey from start to finish. So when I ended the game, rolled credits, I was kind of left wondering, like, why did they do DLC for that? Like, because I don't
Sure.
feel the need for more.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it on my dashboard on PS5,
That's
so
where
I'm
I
looking
played it.
forward to getting to it as soon as possible.
Uh, Sokina says, I won't hear it from someone who thinks Greece is about colors. Bro, I don't know what to
I mean, it
say.
is.
There were lots of colors. All
Yeah,
right. This one is a lovely tale about the love for a pet.
yeah.
So
I think there was a bird in Greece, right? There was a bird or
uh,
something.
I don't know, man.
Not a pet. It was like one of the enemies or
That
something.
game went in my brain. I played it for one sitting, beat it, and then I immediately left my brain.
Yeah.
The other game I've played and beat is Echoes of the End Enhanced Edition, if you want the full
Mm.
title, because it did get a massive update since it launched. I remember it launched to pretty middling, mixed reviews, if you want to say. And I really like this game. I
Mm.
really like this game. I don't know what it was like at launch. They said they improved some stuff. They've like added a gear system and made navigating like they probably made a lot of enhancements to it. So I can't really speak to the comparisons. But what I played was a really competent, good, engaging, over the shoulder third person action adventure game that clearly is inspired by the likes of Sony's first parties output over recent years. Is it as high quality as that? No, it's not. But I think if you go into it like this is going to be a double A version of that, like I had a lot of fun. There's a lot of puzzles in here that have a lot of unique mechanics. I thought they were engaging. You have cool magic powers where you can kind of do control stuff. I was grabbing enemies and
Oh.
throwing them into other enemies. There's spike walls set up all the time. I was trying to like line up enemies. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get both of you into these spike pits. I'm gonna blast you off the edge. Like you have some cool magic powers going on, and then you have some okay sword combat, but that's not what I'm there. I'm there for the magic. The swords are, if I gotta hit them and stuff. So I really liked it. I think the story was engaging enough. This does feel to me like one of those games that maybe got caught in the culture war, if you will, because of the protagonist. But for a double, like these are the games I literally had the thought while I was playing it. I would rather play 10 of these than one 9.5 out of 10 version. Like, give me more of these. Like, this is what I'm on. This is a Kevin game. I think I termed it in the Discord Kevin slop.
It's got the the vibes of a Banishers, you know?
Very Banishers-esque, I will say.
Yeah.
It was Ty Guy Travis. He called them crevice crawlers because they just
Mm.
squeezing through rocks, lifting up things, walking under. Like it's that kind of game.
Hey, I'm on board. I am looking forward to playing it because it was added to PlayStation
Yes, it's
Plus.
on
Yeah.
PlayStation Plus. That's where I played it, and it took me 8 hours
Oh
to
wow. Okay.
beat. There's a trophy for beating it under 10 hours. If you are, the platinum doesn't look very hard, but it looks kind of tedious, especially if you don't look ahead of time, because there's one for like fail your first jump. And I was like, well, I didn't look at the trophies. So now, like, if I want things, I have to go back and replay it because there's other things that's like fail your first this. And I'm like, why would you put that in there? Like, why? Are you trying to be funny?
You're trying to make me be bad at your game.
Yeah, right. Like, you should be like, oh, succeed at your first jump. There's a trophy. All right.
Yeah.
But no, really liked it. Really, really enjoyable game. All right, Sam, I think everyone's sick about us talking what games we're playing. They want us to get into the news. Obviously,
Stop talking about things we enjoy.
I know. Gaming podcast, talking about games. What are we doing here? Sam, we're obviously going to start with the biggest news of the week. That is your topic, and that's the major Xbox shakeup that was announced last Friday. So I'm going to throw it over to you. Maybe we take this in segments as we discuss. I don't know how you want to start. I don't want to get into it, but the floor is yours, my friend.
I mean, I don't even know where to begin. You know, if people have been living under a rock, I guess we should summate what happened. Last Friday, Phil Spencer retired or announced his retirement effective this past Monday. Sarah Bond resigned with immediate effect. Matt Booty was promoted to Chief Content Officer at Microsoft Gaming, and Asha Sharma is the new CEO of Microsoft Gaming, previously from Microsoft's Core AI product division. I mean, I guess like just to provide some early structure, Kev, your overall thoughts on this. You know, I back it up. Your initial reaction. What was your gut reaction?
Yeah. That's a great place to start. That's where I was hoping you would start, because I can tell you exactly, in the United States, there was always a saying like, where were you on 9/11? All right. Like, what were you doing? I was like in third grade, and then all the teachers were freaking out. I can tell you exactly where I was. I was folding laundry. I decided to pick up my phone because my podcast ended, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna put something else on, but first let me check Blue Sky. And then I go on Blue Sky and I see Phil Spencer has retired, Sarah. And I kind of just sat there for a minute and go, what the actual, like, what are you talking about? It's a Friday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. and the head of Xbox, Microsoft Gaming have both just left. And we have this new person I've never heard of is now the CEO. So my initial reaction was very shocked, very flabbergasted, concerned, I think, which I will say only grew as I read more into the situation. But initially, very shocked, very, very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, much the same as you. I think everybody was taken aback. But I did have like this sinking feeling. And I'm sure most people could probably anticipate that I'm going to be relatively pessimistic in talking about this, but I just first disbelief, and then a guttural sort of oh no. So
it's interesting that you have that reaction, because I think we've rightly been critical of Xbox over the last 2-ish years, I would say, probably, right? Like, I obviously hosted Project X Talk for the last 5 years before we started doing the show at the middle of last year. So I've been well in the Xbox ecosystem every week talking about the news, and the start of this generation, there was so much positivity. There was so much hope. There was so much like energy. Everything felt good. Like every week, I felt like we were getting good news. Games were finally coming out, except the 1 year where we only got Pentiment, right? Like they were of higher quality than the Xbox One generation. Like things were on the upswing. And then they just took a nosedive. And I feel like since then, it was nosedive after nosedive, rake after rake hitting people in the face. And not to say that there wasn't some good things. And like, I think
Of course.
last year, as I said, when we rated their year software wise, I thought Xbox had a good year. I think Game Pass has content wise been doing quite well.
Yep.
But we have been critical of Sarah Bond and Phil's leadership, and now they're gone. So I was surprised to see not only like our reactions, but other people who have been calling for a change then kind of shifting tone, like, oh my god, it's actually like happening. Xbox is doomed. Xbox is we should be really concerned about this. And I was like, those emotions don't kind of line up. So I wonder if people, now that it's finally happened, are kind of remembering the good things that Phil Spencer did, especially when he came into Xbox, like in the Xbox One generation, kind of took over from the failure of Don Matrick. And I will say, like, he's retiring. Good for him. He's getting retirement age. He's
Mhm.
been with Microsoft for almost 40 years. I think overall in his career, he did a lot of positive for Xbox. I think the last few years has been a little negative, and we'll talk about maybe who is being blamed for that coming up. But I do want to give Phil some credit for what he has done.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, like, I think the disconnect in the feelings is, as you pointed out, we ourselves and obviously a lot of people across the community have said, kind of feels like it's time for a change in leadership. And, we were expecting, I think, both of us, whether we've said it or not, that Phil was probably going to be gone by the end of like this year, early 2026 anyway. Go on a high after the 25th anniversary year, get all that done, set up the stage for what comes next, and then peace out. And I think like that was the expected thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't necessarily a shock when we realized that a shakeup was happening. I think it was the degree of the shakeup that Sarah was gone too, and that both of them were gone immediately. There wasn't like I mean, obviously
Mm-hmm.
they're staying on in advisory roles, but the fact that they were gone, like at the start of the weekend, they were there, and then by the end of the weekend, both of them are gone. I think that the abruptness of it, rather than like Jim Ryan, who was clearly also sort of somewhat pushed out of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he stayed on for a number of months, in sort of like an interstitial period, still saying like up until I think it was March of whatever year, I'll be, continuing my role as CEO. So obviously, without getting too far into my thoughts on like why it was so abrupt,
Well,
I think
sorry, not to cut you off. Finish
no,
that
please.
sentence. Oh, I was gonna say I did want to touch on. I think the Sarah Bond part of it was
Mm,
the big shock, because I think I said this in the video I put out on Saturday after it happened. Was Sarah had been seen by most of us, I would say, as the successor to Phil
yeah,
Spencer. We
absolutely.
all assumed she was going to take over next. She was next in line, like she was being groomed by Phil to lead Xbox into the future once he was gone. So to see her be like, "Oh no, I'm out," effective immediately, I think that might have been the biggest shock. Like if you just come out and say Phil Spencer's retiring, I think most people go, "Oh man, like that's so sudden." Like, oh, he's done immediately. But the fact that Sarah was attached to it, and we'll talk about information that's come out since then, but like initially it was definitely like this, you don't effectively resign and retire on a random Friday afternoon. You have that kind of lead way. You have that, hey, I'm going to be retiring at the end of the month, at the, at the end of the quarter, whatever, to kind of let people transition. And those are the press releases I think most people were expecting, not, hey, I'm out at
Peace.
I'm out 5 p.m. hits. So I'm packing,
Yeah.
like my office is packed. I'm out of here.
Yeah. And you know, I've throughout this week of processing the news, I've repeatedly sort of said something just smells off to me, in a variety of different ways, right? Whether it's Asher's comments on social media or the interviews that they've given, whatever, or how this whole thing has been handled, who's been mentioned where and who's been omitted, and all this. So, but like to your point of Phil, and like looking back retrospectively, I mean, Ty says in the chat, like, of course, it would inherently be that as soon as they're gone, they're reflected on more positively. That's how it's always been. It's like the grass is always greener on the other side, and then you're like, oh. And I think that we probably will reach a point, again, with my sort of pessimism at the moment, that I hope is proven wrong. To be clear, when I'm caveating everything I'm going to say, I hope I'm wrong. I do think that we are going to reach a point where we kind of look back with, like, not just rose tinted glasses, but like, for the love of God, can some miracle happen where we go back to that time? But yeah, I mean, in terms of Phil, like giving him his flowers, and you know, this isn't just a commentary that me and you have. It's like generally understood that he saved the Xbox in the Xbox One era. Salvaged it from Satya closing down the division entirely, and that's to be commended. I think the nuance in the conversation, maybe, and this leads into what is being said about Sarah and her internal directives and things like this, her approach, her strategies, whatever, doesn't quite sit with me fully. I don't doubt that there is at least degrees of truth to what has been mentioned about Sarah since the resignation. But I feel like it's a bit too convenient. And I think that there are some omissions in terms of timelines and facts that are being overlooked. And just like to round out the point before we move on to Sarah or whatever, the things that often get attributed to Phil in a positive light, which I would agree with, are saving the Xbox One, stripping out the Kinect, lowering the price, backwards compatibility, Game Pass, all of these things.
Actually
Play Anywhere.
establishing first-party studios.
Of course,
which Xbox
that as well,
didn't
yeah.
have. Yeah.
But I simultaneously think that retrospectively, and there was no way that Phil or any of us could have known this at the time, a number of those moves have also, whilst being very positive things, in the moment, have had sort of a deleterious effect that may have inadvertently led us to end up where we are. You know, the introduction of Game Pass was a very smart thing to do, but that led to cannibalization of sales of games. Did that in and of itself lead to the deprioritization or de-incentivization of buying the console? Not necessarily, but then the PC initiative with Play Anywhere came in, and that further sort of moved people not necessarily fully away from the console, but it sort of expanded consumers' horizons. And that isn't inherently, again, a bad thing, but it does make it a bit more difficult when you're trying to set up a proposition in terms of getting somebody to buy into hardware.
Yeah, just to jump in there on those two talking points. I think at the time, Game Pass was the correct.
No, absolutely.
Something new had to be done. The Xbox One was like a catastrophe. People, you know, we didn't have first party, so like we needed something in the ecosystem. I think trying to set yourself apart from the competitors, which introducing a model that had never been seen in the industry before. Like I will go back and defend the move to introduce. Like if I'm in the boardroom at that time, if I'm in the meetings, I say that's a great idea. I think that will set us apart. That will drive people, and it did for a long time. It myself included. When Game Pass came out, $15, right? You could get every first part. Like that was massive. I would be lying to say it wasn't one of the biggest talking points when I was on Project X talk about Game Pass genuinely is the best deal in gaming. And it slowly has eroded where I no longer, I think that's a very asterisk caveat discussion. But even then we go back to his other decisions, the PC initiative you brought up. I think, again, at the time,
Yep.
you need a consumer friendly approach. You want, because I was there 2013. People did not like Xbox. I watched that E3 conference. I watched them on stage, and I personally was all on board for. I was like, "Oh man, like I think the Connect seems cool. All right, like I'm down with what they're pushing. I think this will be a fun platform." And I loved my Xbox One at launch, but the overall conversation was, "Ugh, DRM," even though it got rolled back before the console even came out, right? Or, ugh, like TVs, movies, where are the games? Even though I would argue Xbox's launch lineup was actually quite good for the Xbox One. So it's that Overdrive, right? Like we had some games, but nobody paid attention to those things, and they never recovered from that. So I think trying to be more consumer friendly was the right approach at the time. They just it didn't pay out. It didn't pay off the way they expected it, unfortunately.
Yeah, and again, like I'm 100% with you. Those were the correct moves, even at the time. They were smart, um, innovative, and while some may argue, like, well, now we're just flooded with subscription services because of Game Pass. It's like, well, we probably would have ended up there anyway. So I don't know how fair it is to levy criticism in that regard. But yes, like all of those things were smart and savvy from Phil, not only in terms of like trying to regain market share or consumer mind share, but also in trying to protect the brand, I think, because subscription services are recurrent revenue. That's probably more enticing to someone like a Satya Nadella. And then going to like Play Anywhere with PC, you
Mhm.
also have Microsoft at large being far more interested in home computing and PCs than they would be in consoles. So I think it is, risk mitigation and trying to protect. And I think that that more so than anything, positive or negative, is probably what Phil Spencer long term will be remembered for.
Mhm.
In the and he's been described this a lot, especially over the past couple of years since ABK, um, of being like the last line of defense. He was the last or a true gamer, if you want to call him that, who understood the business and cared about things and um, wasn't just fully fueled by corporate greed or whatever. He sort of inherently understood how the business and the industry worked and what was needed for it. And
Mhm.
I agree with that. But then by factoring that in, you then have to consider, well, that means that the last line of defense is now gone. And I am deeply concerned about what that means going forwards.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about Asha Sharma, or do we want to talk about Sarah Bond and then move in? Because we have the Verge article. I think
Yeah,
if we're going the Sarah direction, and then maybe we can talk about Asha Sharma.
sure, sure.
Yeah. So since I brought it up, the Verge, Tom Warren put out an article. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. It was a few days after all this happened. He said he'd been talking to his sources behind the scenes at Xbox, and that Phil's retirement, while it seemed sudden, was supposed to be announced on Monday. It had been in the plans for a while, like they had been searching for his successor. But I think the more interesting pieces of information that came out from that article were Sarah Bond resigned almost like she was forced to because her initiatives weren't very well received behind the scenes. I know in the article they described her as like being difficult to work with, and if you weren't on board with the vision, then you were out. And she had a very like no nonsense kind of management style, which not everyone at Xbox enjoyed. But what I really read from that article was she pushed for the multi-platform strategy, embracing cloud, PC, and PlayStation, other consoles more, getting rid of exclusives. And then really the this is an Xbox marketing campaign was not well received at all. Xbox behind the scenes, Microsoft did not like how the campaign went. They did not like how it de-incentivized the console hardware and has since, cratered their sales for the last 3 years or whatever since it came out. And I have a few I'll ask you what you think after, but like I have a few reactions to this article because my initial reaction, taking at face value, I go, okay, that if I believe everything written here, that makes sense why she left. She was not being well received internally by employees. Management was not happy with her initiatives not helping Xbox overall. So clearly they didn't feel she was the right person to promote to CEO. If I'm believing everything, understand, all right? That's the business world. I totally get why Sarah would be out. The other part of me feels like you don't name these sources, which obviously you never will. It does kind of feel like Microsoft hit piece kind of to protect themselves. Throw Sarah under the bus because she's out. You know, she can't defend herself and look professional at the same time. So like you're gonna take the fall for this. Phil's gonna go off into retirement. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of those things, as these matters always are. But I do think it's weird that Phil was the only one that mentioned Sarah in his letter. Satya, like no one else seemed to acknowledge her at all. So like, is that bad blood? Is that, hey, we know this? We know a piece is going to come out and it's not going to paint her in the best light, so we shouldn't paint her in the best light. And Phil was like, "Well, I'm retiring. I don't care. I'm going to write whatever I want." So it's all speculation on my part, but I do feel the truth is probably somewhere in the middle where I totally believe that the campaign has not been effective and has actually damaged the brand. And we can talk about that, but the Verge article, how'd you take it?
Yeah, I mean, you'll hit the nail on the head in terms of their needing to and clearly being nuance in this conversation where, trying to paint it as black and white truth or fiction is counterproductive. Um, I, as I said, I think that there is almost certainly a number of people in Microsoft Microsoft or Xbox who found Sarah difficult to work with. But I also think that that would be true of Phil Spencer or Matt Booty or Satya or Amy Hood or Tim Stewart. I don't think that that is inherently a Sarah alone exclusive problem, if you want to call it that, because it's a $4 trillion company. So inherently there are going to be butting heads, especially with the division that's grown in importance so much like Xbox has over the past couple of years. Call me a tinfoil hat guy. I mean, we're obviously in some form of alignment. I just don't buy this. Again, I think that there is undoubtedly some people that probably did find Sarah hard to work with. Her being head of the company alongside Phil, she obviously would have held sway over decisions and how things were presented and marketing and all that. So she's not blameless by any means. But I also think that, as you said, and other people online have said, I think that this is a very easy scapegoat situation. And you could say that that's a conspiracy, but you also do have to consider that it's at a time where it would be very, very beneficial for Microsoft to have a scapegoat. It's at a time where, like you say, the brand that they are apparently now rushing to try and save because they're scared of losing it, that's the words that have been used.
Mm.
It would be very beneficial for them to have a scapegoat to point at and say, they were the person that did this, or did the majority of these things, and they're gone now. And they left of their own admission. They resigned. We didn't fire them. They left. Everything's all hunky-dory. Everyone's fine. And then one of the first things that's mentioned in Asher's and Satya's quotes and messages in the post is about recommitting to Xbox fans and to console and to the players that defined us. And okay, but if that's the case, then you're suggesting that Sarah and Phil didn't care about that.
Mm-hmm.
But then Satya is the one on record saying he doesn't understand exclusives and has tried to kill the hardware multiple times. So I just, again, like I said in the Discord, not about this specifically, it doesn't smell right to me. Could there be a sizable amount of truth to what's being said? Of course. but I watched. I'm not trying to source other people's opinions to inform my own, but I thought it was a good point. I watched the Unlocked episode about this today,
Mm-hmm.
and Miranda Sanchez, who I work with, obviously she's the head of the guides department, so I know her quite well. She said that at a time like this, she said about scapegoating, but she also said at a time like this, when you're looking for inside information, inherently you're going to find people that have bad things to say first. So those people that have bad things to say about Sarah could very well be fully true.
Mm-hmm.
But you are likely to find the negative takes faster. We are in an industry, in a society, in a social media culture where negativity gets the attention. And I think that people that might have had a vendetta for whatever reason, or even, if you want to get real conspiracy theory, a vested interest in trying to tarnish Sarah for the scapegoating reasons, they would be the ones to come forward and make comments in the Verge article. And that's not me, again, it's like the whole Jez court. Like, I'm not trying to discredit Tom Warren as a journalist. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that I don't know that I'm going to inherently place faith in the comments of anonymous sources, again, at a time where Microsoft have every reason to try and suggest that things are different now, guys. It wasn't us. We didn't do this.
Yeah, and we will get into some of the comments made by the new Xbox leadership, kind of around those talking points. I do want to touch back on, we're talking about the internally not popular. This is an Xbox, a multi-platform strategy, and I agree with you. It doesn't sit right based on what they have said to us, what Satya has said on the stand of a courtroom, that he is against exclusives. So my only thought was, okay, so Phil saw, they clearly signed off on the multi-platform strategy.
Yeah.
What did you think was going to happen to your hardware? You can be fine not liking that this is an Xbox campaign. Maybe it's a campaign you thought was too soon. You were, no, we're not ready for this yet. But we haven't established ourselves as being on all these devices, because a lot of them were like, you can't play on every TV. You can't play on you can't play on every single device. Like, your entire libraries are not there. So the campaign itself is flawed from the go. So is it, hey, we're not ready for this yet? Or, hey, this makes it look like the Xbox console doesn't matter? And I would argue, well, you've been doing that for years now with your, hey, it's just 4 games. Like, and then it wasn't 4 games. Like, from Sarah upward down, like whoever signed off on the multi-platform strategy, they were the ones that made people move away from the console, gave them no reason to buy the console. And then this campaign just really drove that home, where they effectively told you didn't need one. I just don't know what they thought was going to happen. It comes across very not long-term thinking, very confusing based on the messaging that we've received from them. So it's just a very strange strategy if they weren't going to be happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, as we've said ad nauseum for Xbox over the past few years, it's just messy. It feels like they're sort of floundering and just sort of jumping from one thing to the next, and they're not really committal to anything. And that's what's thrown the fan base and the community into turmoil, because they just don't know what to expect anymore. There isn't
TJ
like a
brings
clear...
up the mobile store, not to interrupt you, but the mobile store that never happened.
Yeah, I mean, that too. And I think, to be fair, like, if that had have come to fruition, which I doubt it ever will now, frankly, to be honest, if that had, then I could see this maybe working out better, because the revenue probably would have been a lot higher, and then maybe people wouldn't have been ousted. But to your point, them people above Phil and Sarah signing off on this stuff, like, are we as a community, I'm not just speaking to you, Kev, but like to the gaming community, are we really going to be led to believe that something as fundamental as a multi-platform push, which is upending the entire console business for Xbox as it has existed since its inception, we really believe that one person is behind that,
No.
that one person drove the entire thing through, that there wasn't a chance that anybody could push back against it. And I'm sure that there was internal pushback, like, to be clear, I'm sure there was, but that you couldn't override it. Like, Satya has the final say
That's what I'm
on
saying.
anything. And
Hey,
then not
we're
only
on
that,
board.
Kev, but these people are all very smart people. They don't get where they are by not being smart. So we've had multiple years of consecutive console decline. Why are we doing this only now? Why
I
was it
don't
not
know.
after 6 months?
I don't know if they suddenly thought cloud was going to pop off, if they thought their PC storefront was going to pop off, if they expected better sales on PlayStation, which we've gone over multiple episodes where like Forza is the only one that really made a dent. Elder Scrolls is the only one I think other than that above 1 million. Like every other game they've put on PlayStation has not produced. Like, should they have, and this is a hypothetical, obviously we can't go back in time,
Sure.
should they have not done just these 4 games? Should they have waited maybe another year? Should they have waited until last spring where we got a ton and just said, hey, we're dropping 25 I know, I don't know how many they've released, but we're
Sure.
dropping a dozen or more of our games on PlayStation, and that's how they announce it. Would that have been better received than the trickle slow feed? You know, some games are selling 12,000 copies if you're Pentiment, and it's not really like, who cares? Why are we doing this? And it just comes across as to your fan base, well, every game's going over there anyway. Why should I invest in your ecosystem? Why should I buy your platform? Like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a world where you make the multi-platform strategy work, but I know what they did, and TJ said this was not how you act, how you don't execute it the way they did.
Yeah. And I mean, going back to the business update and talking about just 4 games, Phil and Sarah were there. Phil was the one that said it's just 4 games. It's not a fundamental change to our exclusive strategy. So either Phil was lying to us, which clearly to an extent he was, because other games would have been in development for PS5 at that point anyway, or somebody else came in above him and said, actually, no, you are going to do this. So whether that was Tim Stewart, Amy Hood, Satya. So it's like,
I'm going to bring up Kyle's comment here. It says, why are people pretending that Phil didn't have a vision for Xbox and Satya overruled him and led us down this path? You can see Phil's enthusiasm and enjoyment fade with the multi-platform push. I don't think there's a better example of this than when he sat on the couch after closing Bethesda and said, this is about bringing exclusives to where Game Pass exists. He was not talking about PlayStation. He was not talking about Nintendo. That was not their strategy. And I know people have criticized, strategies change, things. It changed because of Activision Blizzard. It changed because of a prolonged trial, a need to recoup your 70 billion that you spent instead of playing the long game, building back up a player base. And I don't know if they said, well, if we can't make Activision exclusive, why should we have exclusive? We don't know these things. But Phil clearly had a vision back in 2020, 2021 of how to bring Xbox back to the forefront. And then 2022, 2023, it all went out the window. And that's where we are today.
yeah. And like, going back to my point about why didn't they, if Satya and that lot, if they are the ones that were upset and it was Phil or specifically Sarah that was pushing this, and the top heads, they weren't happy about it, but we let them do it anyway, even though we can tell them what to do. We let them do it. We hate it, but we're going to let them do it for multiple years. Why didn't they stop it after the first Call of Duty on Game Pass didn't shift Game Pass subscriptions or consoles? Why didn't they stop it then? Why did they do it for another year? And you're like, then people would come at me and say like, oh, well, but they can't take Call of Duty out of Game Pass because they put it in now. Yes, they can. They can do whatever they want. They could kill Game Pass tomorrow. Now, you could argue that that's a bad business decision, but clearly the business decisions they have been making are also bad. So I think, granted, that might mean that they're between a rock and a hard place and there is no like perfect answer for this situation. But again, all of these things combined together, I just don't buy that this is a Sarah push. Phil and Sarah were the ones that spearheaded the ABK acquisition, and obviously that brought unprecedented levels of scrutiny, both externally and internally for Xbox as a division. But Phil was pushing the PC Play Anywhere, and he said back in the day, it's not all of our games going to PC, and then it was. So I think Phil clearly has visions, and then something is overridden. Someone overrides it, and Sarah Bond certainly wasn't at Xbox back in that day, back when they first started porting things to PC. So, and we'll be talking later on about games going to PC. Maybe that is bad for console, and maybe people stop doing that for certain reasons. So, I think that Sarah was not an angel. I'm sure she had problems. I'm sure it's a very stressful job, and that might have led to friction internally. I get that. But she isn't the sole perpetrator here. Far from it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, like I said, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle of what we've been told, what we've read. Before we get into Asha and our concerns, and then we can go into more interviews that they've done. I do want to touch on Matt Booty. You mentioned he got a promotion. Yeah, he got a promotion again. I said it in the video I made. I haven't the slightest idea what this man does behind the scenes to deserve a promotion. If he is literally riding the coattails of I bought Minecraft, you misled Xbox Game Studios for years and a decade. What did you do to deserve a promotion? What have you done besides put out mediocre games and then put out you got some good, don't get me wrong. He corrected course eventually.
He did.
But you launched a console without games, that you gave us an entire year without games. You finally start correcting things in the last 2 years, and that earns you a promotion. Matt Booty, I haven't the slightest idea if he's just really good at politicking behind the scenes, but there is no way, based on what we're shown, it's very much what I think of Herman Holst right now over at PlayStation, where he is mismanaging their first party. Matt Booty has mismanaged. Fable was announced 8 years ago, and I might play it this fall. You can't tell me he's a good manager of freaking the Xbox first party. So I don't know. Whatever, Matt Booty, do your new job.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him ad nauseum of just not really understanding how he's still there. And again, there's nuance to all of these conversation points, right? Like he has had, as you said, he's had hits. He's had some good moments. It hasn't all been misses, but it's just been, at best, it's been uneven. And I don't think that that's good enough, especially for Xbox, considering the scrutiny it's under at Microsoft.
There's no one better you can bring in than Matt Booty.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the one thing that maybe is a reason that he's sticking around now is that, depending on how conspiratorial you want to get in terms of having the heads roll for Sarah and Phil retiring, if you want to fully buy that of it being a willing thing or whatever. Does seem weird that he didn't stick around for the 25th anniversary, but whatever. We're not talking about that anymore. I think that maybe if all three of them went, regardless of what Satya or Asher said, I think there would have been severe levels of panic because there is no member of the old guard there anymore. In terms of like a forward-facing leading the company, obviously there's the Aaron Greenberg, but that doesn't really matter. So maybe, especially, and we'll talk about this, because Asher clearly doesn't have a clue what she's doing.
Yeah. He's there to be the gaming.
He's the caretaker, and the overseer that's sort of gonna be teaching her the ways of what this gaming thing is. So maybe that's the reason that he's still around, that he has been technically, however, ineptly running the studios. And because we know that both of them are now like doing a whistle stop tour of all of the teams, they've said maybe he is like a mediator there. He is bargaining and sort of getting the studios on side with initiatives all the other way around of trying to convince Asher of the value of certain teams. Maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know.
I see Tay in the chat saying, Matt, he shipped Hellblade 2, Forza Horizon 5, Grounded 1, 2, Outer Worlds 2, Avowed. Are these bad games? Hellblade 2, not a bad game. Came like a fart in the wind, though. Nobody cares about Hellblade 2, unfortunately. I'm the biggest Hellblade fan, maybe in the world. All right.
Yeah, nobody bought it. Nobody played it.
Yeah. Forza Horizon 5,
Banger.
massive success. The best success Xbox has had. Grounded 1 and 2, also successes.
Yep.
Outer Worlds 2, mismanaged the hell out of it. Let's raise it to $80. JK, we have a horrible marketing campaign now. We're going to be like, oh, you can't bang your companions, and everyone's going to get upset. Also came, nobody cared. Reviewed okay.
Overexposed it.
Avowed, nobody also cared. Like, these aren't bad games, but these aren't great games. Like, Avowed was a game that was mismanaged, had a lot of development issues, and you're not even like, there's so many other. Where's Redfall? They openly admitted on a podcast, and we kind of just let them do what they wanted to. We didn't even see Redfall until it was basically done. Like, he has mismanaged the Xbox portfolio, and I'm not saying, like, I literally said, yeah, they've kind of recovered, but they have had good to awful games with a few great ones sprinkled in.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that you said like you're very famous for loving swimming in sevens, right?
Yeah.
And I mean this without disrespect. That's what Xbox kind of just is. It's a lots of sevens and eights, and then there's like a few nines, but there's no real like.
Fable's going to be a 10.
I mean, you cross your fingers. We hope, right? I'd love for that to happen, but there hasn't been that this entire generation, and arguably last generation as well. There hasn't been that moment that's like stopping the industry still, and the whole like Xbox tax is not going to happen because it's like that's stupid. It's wrong. I think just comparative as first party teams, they just haven't quite hit the upper echelon that is replicated in other areas of the industry. So
besides playground games, what developer does Xbox have? And I love a lot of Xbox developers.
So do I.
What developer besides playground games do you consistently believe is going to give you a 9 out of 10 game? I don't think there's many, if any.
Coalition, maybe.
If on their best day, Coalition can give you a 9 out of 10 for sure. Like, Gears 5 wasn't for me, but like I've liked all the other Gears of War. They're high 8s, maybe approaching the 9. So Coalition, I will throw in that bucket, but it is a very, very tough. Captain Logan, id Software, great call. All right, we got three.
Yeah, but again, like, and we don't really have to get into this, but it's like when you get into the id softwares and stuff, like that's handled by Bethesda. That's something that they bought. That like Xbox didn't make id software great. Id software already was great, and I think that then relates back to like in terms of stewarding studios. What is Xbox's track record? And it's pretty poor. And that's not, again, because we're talking about Xbox here, that doesn't mean that the other first parties across the industry aren't also at major faults. But in terms of the conversation surrounding Xbox today, like that's why we're not saying like, oh, well, PlayStation's mismanaging teams, because like a given.
They are. We talked about it last week.
Exactly. Bluepoint got closed down, and I'm still very, very mad about it. So yeah, like I don't want people in the chat or watching this after the fact to misconstrue that we're just dogpiling Xbox and not acknowledging that there are first-party mishandlings elsewhere.
Yo, my man Daddy D Wally in the chat just spitting. Has the multi-platform approach really helped Xbox? Just keep it console and PC, which we can talk. We're going to talk about those when we get to the interview that Jez Corden did, because I think some people are on their hopium personally, but I agree with you, Dan. I have said this for a long time, that the multi-platform approach has not been worth it in terms of brand damage. So, all right, Matt Booty, I think it's finally time to talk about the new CEO of Microsoft Gaming, Asha Sharma, coming from Core AI. How are you feeling about the new CEO?
Not good. Listen, I can appreciate people being like, "Oh, give her a chance, let's see what happens." But with Microsoft's track records, and see, this is where like the whole narrative completely falls apart to me, because we just said like Asha doesn't know what she's doing. She's admitted that herself. She doesn't understand how things work, why decisions were made. She's having to go and visit all the teams to sort of get what they do. And then decisions are going to be made after that fact. If this was a long time coming, if this was a plan that had been discussed and Phil was prepping to retire, you're telling me that there wasn't any training ahead of time for this person that you decide to appoint as the next CEO. And then you're like, well, okay, so Sarah Bond was being primed as the next CEO, and she knows what's going on. She's clued in, obviously. Okay, but you're not appointing Sarah. She's resigning at the same time as Phil. And now she's coming in, and we've never heard of her before. There wasn't an Xbox podcast that was introducing us to her, no blog post prior to this announcement when it broke on Friday, completely out of nowhere. So I would argue that this whole thing is probably coming pretty much out of nowhere, or at least with far less wind up than they might be suggesting with Phil. That's my personal perspective. It's my comment earlier which I said about if the higher ups at Microsoft weren't happy with this initiative, with the direction that Xbox was going. It's been going this way for a number of years. The continual decline quarter over quarter for hardware, diminished, sales on a number of games, Game Pass stagnating. They could have turned this around at any point. They could have turned it around after the first quarter if they really wanted to, or the second quarter, or the third quarter, or the fourth.
After most of the 4 games they put on PlayStation didn't sell over 30,000 units. Yeah.
So they've had essentially countless opportunities since the business update to be like, yeah, experiment kind of failed. Oh, we're not going to do that. They've let it go so far now. And my question then becomes, why now? Why now? Well, we are ushering towards the era where like all of the hardware and the specs and the OSs for this next gen hardware on all ends of the spectrum are going to be somewhat set in stone. And the direction is going to have to be solidified. On top of that, you have Microsoft end of last year or it might be the start of this year, time is a flat circle, ditching OpenAI, that relationship, and doubling down on its own internal AI initiatives, building out that infrastructure internally so they're less reliant on an external partner. Over the past 2 years, they've introduced Copilot for gaming. And then they did Muse, which was Gen AI. And then the question that popped into my head of, okay, so they did that Gen AI thing with Muse. And what was the game that they did the footage of?
Bleeding Edge.
Bleeding Edge, yeah. Why did they pick Bleeding Edge of all their games? Could it maybe have been, and again, this is, you could say I'm tinfoil hatting, could it maybe have been because nobody cared about Bleeding Edge? So that when they showed Gen AI footage of Bleeding Edge, there wasn't going to be a kick up or as much of a fuss as compared to if it was a Gears or a Halo or a Forza being Gen AI'd, because nobody cared about Bleeding Edge and it was dead. They could show it off with Ninja Theory, no less, which is meant to be a boutique artiste studio. Yeah, so that just seems a bit conspicuous to me that of all the games in their portfolio, they would pick a dead, failed, flop live service game. So I think, and then obviously now she's an AI person, and you can say like, oh, well, does it really matter what she's done in the past?
I,
Yeah,
I,
it kind of
I've
does.
seen some pushback on people being like, "Oh, she's not an AI person just because she comes from the AI world," and I think you're being naive if you truly believe that.
Yeah,
First of all, she has talks, like video recording, like almost TED talks, talking about how the birth rate in the U.S. is a problem and how AI can solve it. Like, if she doesn't believe it, she believes it enough to be out there like pitching it for at least for her work sake. Like, I don't know her personal beliefs on AI, but she has no problem pushing it for her job. And the fact that Satya is so AI coded right now, like that is their big initiative. That's where they're investing all their money. It doesn't take a genius to connect dot A to dot B and say, oh, clearly we want someone who is pro AI. And everyone jumped on the, oh, we're not going to have soulless AI slop. Yeah, because you're going to think, oh, we have great AI.
yeah, they're
We
not going to
have
say.
good AI on our
What else are
platform.
they going to say?
Yeah, ridiculous comments to me. And I'm not saying that I don't think she deserves the job. I'm not saying I think she's going to fail. I'm not like, I want her to succeed. I want her to be a good CEO
Sure.
for Microsoft Gaming. I want her to do good things for Xbox. I don't want Gen AI in our games. She said there's no mandate. I don't know how much I believe that. We'll wait and see for all these things. So I'm not making any judgments on how she is going to do. I'm just saying, and I said this in my video, I think it's completely fair to have concerns based on where she has come from and Microsoft's initiatives that AI is a big reason why she is in the position to bring it into games, to bring it into Game Pass, your gaming system, the next Xbox ships with co-pilot. Like, I think those are all very real possibilities. On the other hand, I've heard from multiple people say now, I think it was in the Tom Warren article too, that she does excel in user acquisition, which is something that Xbox sorely needs. I don't know how they get user acquisition based on their current strategy because you don't have exclusives to drive people to your hardware. You don't have the draw of Game Pass because it's been stagnant now for 2 years. It hasn't grown, and the only reason it's above 30 million anyway is because you rolled Xbox Live into it and rebranded it, right? So like the price increase has probably driven some of those consumers away, I would imagine. So I'm then you have the instability. Like, I know general consumers probably have no idea what's going on, but inside the industry, online communities, like how do you trust Xbox going forward to not flip flop on strategies? Like, I always wonder, how do you feel confident investing in continuing to build your Xbox library? Because I lost trust in that. That's why I switched to PC. I'm really curious at the people who still have that faith because they are this flip flop. So I just think there's so many things right now going against her. It's like, you better be really good at user acquisition. You better have some master plans coming with this team of yours. And I have no idea what that looks like. I have no idea what that could even look like. But you're going to need something new, something exciting to bring consumers back to the Xbox console and ecosystem.
Yeah, and this is where the real like pessimist in me comes out, because I'm not trying to call anybody out, to be clear, but I think that there has just been an immediate, like, concerning level of, as I've said in the Discord and on socials, just drinking the Kool-Aid on what Asha has been saying. She's, people, tons of people have said she's saying all the right things. That's really encouraging. And not for a split second are people saying, well, what else would she be saying right now? Would she say, yes, we're going to close teams, we're going to cram our ecosystem full of AI, we're going to strip it for parts, we're going to do this, we're going to do that? No, she's going to say, because this is clearly what it's being framed as, whether it ends up being this in reality or not, we don't know. I hope it is a good thing, but I don't believe it's going to be. She's going to frame it as, this is the turnaround, this is the salvation of the brand, this is the recommitment, this is everything that you guys that you've been so vocal about, complaining about over the past few years of the multi-platform push and Xbox losing its place. She knows what to say to get people on side because, as you said, you literally said it. She is very good. She has a track record of user acquisition. And I would argue that that extends to reacquisition of users, of trying to lure people back who have become disillusioned with the brand. And how does she do that? She does that by immediately out of the gate saying all the things that you want to hear. And I'm not saying you, Kevin, I'm saying you, the Xbox community, want to hear. And again, some of those things could prove out to be true. Like she could mean some of the things that she's saying. But I also think that she has every reason, a vested interest right now, to get as many of you on side as possible to give her the benefit of the doubt.
I don't like her statement. I shouldn't say that. I like her statement if I'm taking it at face value. Do I think Xbox wants their hardware to do better, and that's what they mean by return to console? Yes, clearly they want their consoles to sell. Do I think they have a plan for how to do that? Currently, no. That is what she's been brought in to do, to figure out.
And she said like she doesn't know what she's doing.
Exactly. Well, exactly. So we need the team around herself. Like as I just said, she needs to figure out that user acquisition part. I'm a little pessimistic on if that happens, but we will wait and see. But every other comment in her opening statement, then she was going on Twitter, it comes across, and I don't want to be mean to her. It comes across pandering to me, guys. Like it's very, hey, look at me, fellow kids. And it continues this parasocial relationship that Xbox executives have with the community that no other gaming brand seems to have. And I know some people like that, like, oh, they're so related. Like Phil Spencer was relatable. He's like, oh, I'm a gamer after hours too, guys. Like, but this new CEO is not, she's not a gamer. She openly admits that, right? It's clearly just their strategy to have someone as a friendly face, interact with the community, interact with people you should not be interacting with that are openly racist about your race. All right. Like, I'm not going to go further than that, but like she was, I don't know if it's her, co-pilot, intern, whatever, but like it comes across very pandering, especially should I bring the blades back? Like, come on now. Like you don't even know what you're talking about. Like I get you're trying to make a joke and like, I would have prefer you to just kind of say, hey, this is what my goals are. I want to reinvest in the Xbox hardware. I want to make hardware desirable again. I don't know how to do that right now, and clearly make it a little more PR speak for me. But I do like. I think that point's good. Commit to learning the business. Like things she's saying are fine, but you don't need to keep saying that. You don't need to be on Twitter talking about like, I'm gonna go play Chrono Trigger. Like, no, you're not. You're not gonna fucking play Chrono Trigger. All right. Like, it drives me nuts. The pandering to the parasocial people on Twitter who just want to worship these Xbox executives. Like you don't see that at Nintendo. You don't see that at PlayStation. And I would say they're better off for it because then you don't have the emotional investment. You're like, Xbox would never do us wrong. We're their friends. Like, come on, guys. You're not their friend. You're their customers.
Yeah. And like, we've both said it, but just to be clear again, like, Asher doesn't have to be a gamer to be a competent CEO.
Strauss Selnick isn't a gamer, and he runs the fucking biggest IP in the world.
Precisely. But she is already so, at least optically, desperate to prove her credentials or her worth or her commitment to the brand that she's publicly sharing her gamer tag. Like, can you imagine Herman Holst doing that? Like, what's up, guys? Here's my PSN ID.
Jim Ryan's like, come check out my PlayStation trophies. You know what I meant, Kai. I know Pokemon's the biggest IP in the world. I meant like the biggest selling. You know,
sure.
Don't get it. But no, like you wouldn't see it. Check out my Nintendo Switch ID, guys. My friend code.
Exactly. And I think that the ID itself is the Xbox ID is kind of a little bit conspicuous.
Well, she admitted it's her family's account. Like she played a little, but it's her family. I'm like, okay.
No, I buy that. I
I
think
don't care
I think
personally.
I mean, of course, like it doesn't really matter, but like I think that could very well be a very convenient cover that could excuse maybe other people playing on your account to fluff up your gamer score or play lots of different games or whatever. You know, the account started a month ago. And like I'm not going to get into it, but she was unlocking like rare achievements, like several in a single day for Minecraft that like 0.1% of players have. And for someone who's not a gamer, that seems a bit odd to me. But regardless, she doesn't have to be a gamer to be good. That doesn't matter. But why is she doing this? Like the first thing she does is engage with both good faith and bad faith actors on social media, and it's clear. Like you said it. It's to replicate the what's the word? The appealing, approachable, relatable nature that Phil Spencer had.
Mhm.
And what did that get Phil Spencer? A lot of goodwill and patience from fans who believed in him because he was one of us. And it's such a transparent attempt, even if it is done in good faith. Like I'll give Asha the benefit of the doubt in that regard. Even if she was like, well, it worked for Phil, and I would love to have that same
Yeah.
relationship with my fans. Like even if it was meant in that good way, it's still the wrong call. And I would urge people to again not buy into that because she's not a gamer and she shouldn't pretend to be.
I just want to be a good CEO.
Exactly.
I don't care if you're a gamer. Just
Yeah.
run Xbox better than it has been being run. That's what I will judge you on. That's all I care about. But I am concerned AI in our games. I am concerned that nothing really changes because there was a lot of doublespeak in her statement alone, where it's like talking about, oh, we're going to recommit to the console. Next paragraph, we're going to continue our cloud
All
PC,
devices.
all continue our play anywhere. I'm like, well, how can you recommit to the console? So like, there's a lot of doublespeak in her statement alone. Not to mention the article over at Windows Central from Jez Corden, which I know has been very controversial on the internet the last 24 hours because people came out and called whatever called him out and it's like, oh, it's a fluff piece, and I'm not here to do that. I think Jez was doing his job, and I think Jez did his job as well as he could, because if you know about these corporate interviews, PR and marketing will be like, these are the questions you're allowed to ask. Like, give us a list. These are the questions you're allowed to ask. We're not going to answer any other questions. And you kind of know how it's going to go, right? So for me, I read the article. I personally thought it was a nothing burger.
It
Like,
was.
I don't think there was any substantial information given. Again, she just started. I don't know what information she can possibly give. She basically kind of reiterates her statement from the other day again, where again, recommits to the console. And the thing that everyone is latching onto is, exclusives are are multi-platforms a strategy until it isn't, or something, whatever. I forget the phrasing, right? But everyone is jumping on, oh, could exclusives be coming back? No, I'm telling you straight up, exclusives are not coming back. It doesn't make any sense. You can't. You open that can of worms. You can't close it now. You are putting your four biggest IPs on PlayStation this year alone. You have Halo, Gears, Fable, and Forza. And then you're thinking, well, we're just going to put those out and then say, hey, every other entry is exclusive. Like, shareholders will not allow you to lose that revenue despite however minuscule it may be, right? I just don't see a world where that happens. I don't see how you can possibly go back to that. And I've seen some people say, well, oh, what if you get rid of Game Pass, or what if Game Pass changes? I think if Game Pass goes away, then you should just get rid of your hardware altogether. I that is the last remaining draw you have to the Xbox console. And I know you can
Mm.
get it on PC, but if you get rid of Game Pass, if you raise the price, if you altered it substantially, like taking day one out of there, your first party out of there, you might as well just stop the console altogether, because you no longer have anything to draw you to this console, let alone the next console.
Yeah, and I mean, they've spoken recently about, or Jez, I think, might have even reported about the potential of Xbox throwing in additional subscriptions into premium, like the WoW subscription and Fallout First. It's like, if they're considering that, then the price is going to go up. So like that's where the concern lies. And to relate back to, I saw Logan's comment. I wanted to make sure that we were clear about it, about not learning about gaming by gaming. That's not what we're saying. That's totally fine. That's perfectly valid. But you don't see the Strauss Zelnicks or the Herman Holsts come out and their very first act, if you will, be trying to appeal to fans on social media by saying, give me game recommendations. And these are other people who, I mean, Herman Holst has had a history in games, but you get my point. Other CEOs who haven't had a history in games don't come out and the first thing they do is try to, in the nicest way possible, suck up to fans. I think that's a very slippery slope.
I have no problem with her learning about gaming by gaming.
You sort of have to.
My problem is her pandering to people about it. So that is my issue. I think she should be playing some games. I think that's an important part of learning the industry, not only for Matt Booty, but like what makes this fun, and maybe she can like talk to people about that. But I don't think there's a problem with her gaming.
No,
I don't think she needs to, though. That's my point.
Yeah, she doesn't have to, and it's good that she is, because it does help, no doubt, I'm sure. But it's just the approach and how eager she seemed to be to show that she was trying to do these things. It's sort of very clearly, again, mimicking Phil, and I don't think that panned out long term. Because I think the thing that I would point out in wrapping in all of this is that, people talking about, our exclusives coming back, and I'm with you that it's just not happening. And by the way, if they find a way to make it happen by bringing exclusives back, the consequences, short, medium, and long term, for the Xbox division are going to be way worse than they already are. Because if they force it exclusive again, that means the games are making less money inherently. That means more pressure is applied to Game Pass to be profitable, or even more profitable, because you're cutting off revenue streams. That means that games that are missing milestones in development of any kind, they'll likely be cut. That means people will leave the studios because of the pressure and the uncertainty. That means that studios will close. That means that your favorite games, your favorite IP, your favorite creators go away.
One of the main reasons they had to go multi-platform was to try to increase their revenue.
Yeah.
Because the Xbox console alone and their PC storefront do not generate game sales. And I know they have Game Pass. Game Pass is making $5 billion a year or something, right? Like that's what they've told us. Mm-hmm. But they also said they don't account for first party development costs in that, right? So they had to go multi-platform because they've trained their audience for 10 years now not to buy games, to play what's on Game Pass, to wait for it to come to Game Pass or wait for a really deep discount. So they're developing these really expensive games that other publishers would sell for $70. They need to recoup that revenue. That's why they went to the multi-platform strategy. So maybe there is a way they bring back exclusives if they kill Game Pass. I know I just got through saying they can't kill Game Pass. They might as well get rid of their hardware. If I will retract that and say, if they want exclusives to work on their platform as their main driver, then you have to get rid of Game Pass. Then you have to say,
then the platform isn't big enough to sustain them.
I think you lose more people than you would gain buying exclusives. I just don't see a world where either one of those scenarios works out for them. So that's why I said it has to be something new. It has to be something innovative to drive people back to the platform, to the ecosystem, because exclusives can't come back in a sustainable way for them to keep developing these games. And Game Pass can't go anywhere without probably pissing off the majority of your remaining consumers.
Yeah. And I think like this is going to be levied as a criticism against the community. And I don't, not our community, but just Xbox in general. And I mean this like from my heart. I don't mean this as an attack. The issue I see is it's two pronged on both sides with Asher and the Xbox community now, where Xbox players historically, prior to the business update and Project Latitude multi-platform push, were, as everybody else is, very keen on exclusives, whether they were first party, timed, whatever. Then the business update hits. Xbox tells you that this is the way it's going to go. We are doing this. We're changing our strategy. And there's pushback from Xbox fans and the community, but over time they adapt to it and they accept it. And then the commentary online and the social discourse is that Xbox are being pro-consumer. They're breaking down barriers. They're doing this. They're doing that. They're, you know, trying to make it better for everyone. Everybody else is bad by having exclusives. The issue then becomes that in this intersectionality moment where there's crossover and shakeups happening, there's now this commentary of like, oh, bring back exclusives, reprioritize the console. And that's contrary to what people were saying. Fans were saying that the fans that, by the way, Asher is now engaging with were saying a year ago, because they'd acclimatized to the multi-platform thing and thought that that was in it for the long haul. And now at the first chance that there's a switch back to the old ways, people are salivating at it. And the issue that I find is that that is going to be inherently corruptive to the data that Xbox collects on player sentiment, on trends, player behavior, in terms of the ecosystem. Because not only are Xbox flip-flopping on their strategy, Xbox fans are flip-flopping in the messaging that they're conveying to the company.
I said this on socials the other day where I was like, the only thing that I've learned recently is that 90% of Xbox creators, I'm not going to name names. You
Sure.
probably know some big ones.
Yeah.
They don't actually care about being critical or analyzing things. They just care, what's the next marketing beat I get to repeat that Xbox tells me? Oh, exclusives are bad, exclusives are good, exclusives are bad. Like, now that there's a chance, oh, exclusives might come back. Oh, suddenly we want exclusives. It drives me up a wall. And I know I was a shout out Captain Logan and Luke over at the Xbox Expansion Pass, and actually good Xbox platform that you should listen to every week. Captain Logan was saying, you know, and I agree, if it was up to me, Xbox would have never moved away from exclusives.
Mhm.
Exclusives would be the driver to the platform, because third place doesn't get to dictate. Listen, I'll get to you in a minute, Daddy. Well, you are definitely not included in that list. You probably know who I'm talking about, though. But as I say, exclusives would be the main driver for me, because third place should not get to dictate what works in the industry. They don't get to tell you exclusives are antiquated, because just because it doesn't work for them doesn't mean it's not working. It's working for PlayStation. It's working for Nintendo. It's working very well for Nintendo. Their attach rate is crazy. And I know people bring up, oh, well, PlayStation doesn't have a as big of an attach rate. If you looked Xbox in the eye and say, hey, you're going to have 90 million console users, you're going to have a Game Pass subscription that people will subscribe to, and your exclusives will sell 10 million copies on your platform, you think they say, no, thank you? They're going to eat that up, because that is a much better situation than they find themselves in currently. Like, I just don't get that mindset. And I saw Tay make a comment in the chat. I'm not trying to call people out, but he says they went back to multi-platform because the consoles weren't selling. This isn't a Game Pass issue. The console and users not buying is the problem. They're not buying because Game Pass exists and you've taught them for a decade not to buy your games. If Game Pass didn't exist and exclusives were the only driver, we might be looking at a different world. They also didn't give exclusives a chance to actually work. And this drives me bonkers because Xbox One had no exclusives. They had nothing worthwhile of investing in the platform. Even though I was there the entire generation, I played Rise, Son of Rome, all right? I did play the exclusives they had. They did not have console selling exclusives on the Xbox One. Xbox Series X comes out and it was selling well when it launched. Everyone seems to forget this. The Xbox Series consoles were selling well when they came out. And Phil Spencer doubled down, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Bethesda is about bringing exclusives, all right? And what did they do before they even got a chance to start putting out exclusives? They bought ABK and messed the whole thing up. They didn't even give themselves a chance. They put out, as you were saying, Swimming in Sevens. They put out all these South of Midnights, and I'm not trying to crap on those games. I played South of Midnight. Like,
of course.
I like most of what Xbox puts out. They have
Sevens aren't bad.
Yeah, they have not put out a console selling game this generation. I think they banked heavily on Starfield, and when that didn't go the way they thought, they kind of just threw in the towel instead of saying, "Hey, let's double down on this. Let's invest. Let's make Elder Scrolls 6 exclusive. Let's see what that does for the platform. Let's up the budget of our studios that are kind of on the cusp of those mid eights, and let's see if we can push those to a 9. Let's see if we can make those console sellers and see what happens." But they didn't do that. They didn't even try to do that. So you can't sit here and tell me exclusives don't work when they didn't fucking try.
Yeah.
And I'm a little heated because
no, I mean,
I loved Xbox. I was with Xbox for 20 plus years, man. And it just grinds my gears when people have revisionist history about Xbox and what they actually tried to do. They didn't try at all.
Yeah, and they got too greedy. And again, there's nuance. We can understand why they got greedy, because at that point during the pandemic, when they bought Bethesda and they were eyeing up ABK, prices were fluctuating, things were seeming to be booming, all of this stuff. But like you said, they bought Bethesda and they could have, and obviously should have, stopped there. And they didn't. And they didn't let Bethesda settle in, because that led to things like Redfall flying under the radar, apparently. And they didn't let really any of their teams from Bethesda or first party really fire off prior to deciding to buy ABK. Yeah. So I think that's clearly where the issue lies. I think that, and to go back to my point of the fans sort of flip-flopping on the exclusives and all this, it's like the fans are saying, well, you said that what we retort out, that changes depending on what Xbox is saying to us, almost as if the plan is the plan until it's not the plan. Who else said that just now? Oh yeah, Asher said that the plan is the plan until it's not the plan. So maybe the plan right now is to say all of these nice things to get you on side. But then when she actually learns what she's doing and how everything works, maybe that's when the plan changes and things either stay exactly the same or they get worse.
I get very tired of people flip-flopping their positions after hearing it in an interview or what the Xbox executives tell them to believe. It drives me up a wall, man. It's so negative. It's so that I don't know, toxic positivity is maybe the right word, where people will believe anything no matter what. And I'm not here for it anymore. I'm going to start pushing back. All right. I don't want to be overly negative. I want to be critical. I want to, I want to have something I'm passionate about, and that is gaming, that is Xbox, that is everything. So.
Yeah. And you said yourself that you're really like, you love Xbox, you've been there for so long and it frustrates you. And I think like that's like the toxic positivity you talk about, like we get it. Again, the nuance, we understand why it's there, because as fans, you're so desperate for the thing that you love to sort of correct course and self-correct and get back on straight and narrow and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, but don't tell me you're playing 4D chess that I don't understand.
And like for several years with Xbox, even longer than that, arguably, they just haven't been able to right the ship. And anytime that it's looked like the ship is about to be on a straight course, something hits it inadvertently or intentionally, and it starts steering off in a different direction again. And to fill out the metaphor, I suppose, the Xbox fans aboard the ship are just getting seasick all the time, and their heads are waving, and they just don't really know where to settle. And I think, like, again, that's where I'm really concerned, because Asher could very well have really good intentions of turning things around. I don't believe that yet. I'm not going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She has to prove to me. Of course, I'll technically give her a chance because I have to. But
oh yeah, I'm giving her a chance.
like,
Until she messes up,
yeah,
yeah. But like,
but that's where I'm concerned, because where we are right now as Xbox, as an ecosystem, as a platform, optically, reality, whatever, it is a result of the Satyas and the Amys. It is a result, both good and bad, of the Phils and the Sarahs. And she's coming in and doesn't know herself, admitting again what she's doing. And she's saying these things now that sound great on paper. But as you said, like, what do we believe that they actually have an idea of how to make those things happen? No. So it's just sort of fluff. It's the pandering. And I'm scared, because you could argue that to varying degrees, that's kind of what the prior leadership did in various ways over the years, of talking about, like, we're doing this for you, we're pro-consumer, we're trying to break down barriers. And now they're backtracking and saying that that was a terrible idea. So they're saying that being pro-consumer to you, which is what they've been trying to spin up as the multi-platform thing, is pro-consumer, breaking down barriers. They're now trying to convince you that that's a bad thing. So they were either lying to you back then, or they have no integrity to commit to a vision, which is, by the way, one of the problems that got Xbox One where it was.
I don't. I genuinely, like I said, I'm gonna give her a chance. Whatever, if she can make things better, great. That's all I want. But as of right now, her statements have been pandering. They have been a lot of doublespeak. They don't give me much confidence that anything's actually going to change. I do think I've seen some hyperbole that, like, I think what Seamus Blackley's statement about her being brought in to sunset the Xbox, I think that's a little hyperbolic. I think he's being a little dramatic there, personally. And listen, if he's talking about the Xbox hardware, I
Sure.
say there's a 70-30 shot the next Xbox does come out. Do I think it sells well? Not particularly, but I think maybe then they leave. But Xbox as a brand isn't going anywhere. Maybe it becomes Microsoft
Sure.
Gaming at some point. But like, they're, at the end of the day, they're going to be a third-party publisher at the very least. If they can turn around the Xbox console, if they can turn around everything and get back into the, hey, we're a major platform holder that actually like sells more than 30 million units, and we're a viable ecosystem and viable console hardware to invest in, great. But if they don't do any of that, they're still going to make tons of money from, hey, we're going to put out COD every year, we're going to sell all these other games, Bethesda, Activision, Xbox Game Studios. I'm not worried about the future of Xbox. I think the concern is, what does the AI situation look like? What does the hardware look like? That's really where I'm looking.
Yeah. And like, it doesn't have to be sky is falling necessarily, because I think that, we talked about, like, do they get rid of Game Pass? Do they go back to exclusives? I think that there are smaller steps that they could take that would still sting, but could be done. So, like, I think that a not unreasonable thing that I think that Xbox fans could and probably should sort of swallow the bitter pill of is maybe a caveat, a meet in the middle, is maybe just taking Call of Duty out of Game Pass, because they're losing 300 million every year, seemingly,
Well,
from
that's why
lost
they raised the
sales.
price of Game Pass, right?
Exactly.
Like, does the price go back down? I'm doubtful if it does.
So if they want to keep the price where it's at, and they're talking about adding in again all of these other subscriptions, the WoW, the Fallout First, maybe to keep the price there whilst adding in these other subscriptions, you take out Call of Duty, which means that you guarantee or more likely guarantee the sales revenue of Call of Duty, which is your big behemoth golden goose.
Every year. Yep.
You can keep Game Pass at the same price without raising the price and pricing people out more and upsetting people. But by taking Call of Duty out, you're also adding in the other subscription services, which again, people could argue, like, oh, I don't care about these subscriptions. But you're technically not paying more than you already would be for Ultimate anyway. And if you want the day one games, you're still getting that, just not Call of Duty. Because clearly, Call of Duty and Game Pass has been a failed experiment. There's no, I think that's just factual. It hasn't shifted Game Pass numbers. It hasn't shifted consoles, and they've just lost money. So maybe that is a backtrack that isn't like super severe. It's not stripping day one entirely. It's not.
It does open the door though. If they
It
can
does.
do it, if they can do it to Call of Duty, they can do it to
How
any
many
first
doors
party.
have they opened by this point? You know, I think that like repealing one rather than just again sort of trotting down in the same direction on the same road and being like, oh well, we said this 2 years ago. How many backtracks have they done? Like I think that they just add one more backtrack to the pile, one more U-turn, one more 180.
I am interested to know what Game Pass looks like in 2 years' time, because I'm going to go on record. It's not going to look like it looks like today, especially if they launch a new piece of hardware, because if the new PC hybrid, like they're gonna have to get rid of the online, like paying for online requirement. That basically eliminates Game Pass Essential, your lowest entry to the Game Pass tier system. Then you face the problem of, well, what happens to PC Game Pass, because this is a PC now. So like Game Pass, and this isn't anything new I haven't said before, but like we're going to have a reckoning with Game Pass, with tiers, prices, things getting combined. Like I don't know what that looks like. I hope PC Game Pass still kind of exists in some way that's like it's the best, that is the best value in terms of subscription service, PC Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wary that is probably not going to exist much longer. I if I had to bet on it, I think they get rid of that and we see more console based. That's like because they've added cloud, they've added PC to all the tiers. So for me, when they put out this new console, they take out the online requirement, maybe some prices adjust here and there, but like I don't know. I'm worried Game Pass is, and it's not even like I'm not a constant subscriber, but I do jump in throughout the year, and I like having that option. So we'll see what happens with all of this. I don't know if I have much more to say on this situation personally.
I think my final point, my final statement would be that, mentioning Copilot in terms of like concern for the future, Copilot for gaming, Muse with Gen AI content. I just, in my research, dug up something. And again, tenuous link or not, whatever. I looked at Satya Nadella's Scratchpad.
What the hell's that?
It's like a blog. A blog.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
December 29th, 2025. So 2 months ago, basically. As I reflect on the past year and look toward the one ahead, there's no question 2026 will be a pivotal year for AI. But this moment feels different in a few notable ways. We've moved past the initial phase of discovery and are entering a phase of widespread diffusion. We're beginning to distinguish between spectacle and substance. We now have a clearer sense of where the tech is headed, but also the harder and more important question of how to shape its impact on the world. And now he's appointed an AI exec to Xbox. And again, talking about walking away from OpenAI and furthering internal Microsoft AI initiatives. To me, that would clearly translate to every Microsoft project we need to figure out as extensive an AI integration as we possibly can. And that would getting AI into people's homes, into their living rooms, would also be Xbox hardware, whether it's current or future. So I think that people downplaying the AI aspect of it, I mean, you said that you're concerned about it, so like I think we're on the same wavelength, but hence my pessimism. I think that the AI situation is probably actually, at least as of right now, considering we don't have all the information, seemingly more dire than one might suggest.
Made me depressed.
Sorry.
I listen. I expect it to happen, so like my expectations are pretty low. Like,
Surprise
you know.
us. Surprise us, Xbox. Surprise us, Microsoft. Prove us wrong, please.
Yeah. But also Xbox, if anything happens to Ninja Theory, you can go fuck yourself.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
I'm planting my flag, man.
Booty has said that there's no restructuring of teams or anything, no
Yeah, for
changes
now.
happening.
For
Yeah,
now.
the plan is the plan until it's not the plan, right?
The day anything happens to Ninja Theory, we're doing a podcast and you are going to see Kevin unleashed like you have never seen him before. All right.
I'm just going to stay muted the whole time and just sit back with
It's
a
just going to
bowl
be
of
40
popcorn.
minutes, 40 minutes of go on.
Keep going.
And then what did you do to him then? Okay. I think an hour and a half on Xbox is probably good unless you have some closing comments.
No, I mean, again, like very nuanced conversation. Like obviously we've been very critical. There is hope to be had, but I'm not optimistic. This isn't nothing we said is an attack on anybody, on journalists, on the fans, nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
We're just sharing opinions. And again, we've both said it. We hope we're wrong in our pessimism. We really do. We want Xbox to succeed. I want it to be a good competitor. It's just how do they get there? Time will tell.
All right. Let's move on to the next final topic. Oh, we did have a Black Wyver did write in. So with the recent change in leadership at Xbox, do you see immediate changes that you'd see impact the gamers in 2026? I don't think so. I think 2026 is probably just a year of her learning the job.
I mean, how absolutely balked would it be if in the 25th anniversary they're like, "Hey, we're closing another 4 teams." Yeah, I think if they have any sense that they will hold off on any kind of Game Pass changes or studio changes or game cancellations, even if it technically happens this year, I would just maybe not say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we'll see. I think it's not off the table. I don't think it's impossible, but I would say unlikely as of right now.
Thank you for your question, Black Wyver. Remember, if you're a patron over at patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia, you can write in with your topics, questions, or it's for this episode, for our exclusive episodes. So yeah, $1 a month. All right. Normally we give them their own topic, all right, but everyone wanted to talk about Xbox this week, so there's no Patreon topic this week. We will move on to our next topic. And this is PlayStation moving away from PC? This was actually a surprise topic. We weren't originally planning on talking about this because it was mainly just going to be an Xbox episode. But we got some little bit of information. We don't have much yet, but Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, basically an airtight source, and John Linman over at Digital Foundry were chatting on the Triple Click podcast, and the topic of PlayStation pulling back from PC came up. Apparently, Schreier made some comments that says he's heard that single player PlayStation games going forward, they're going to pull back from porting them to PC. People called this out of speculation. Schreier said on Reset Era, quote, "I mean, it's not speculation, but sometimes topics come up on the show before I'm quite ready to publish a story about them. More to come soon, I'm sure. Thanks for listening to Triple Click." This has also been backed up by Nate the Hate, who says Sony is shifting their PC strategy, absolutely, alongside Sneakers SO, who commented on Schreier's comments with, "He's not wrong." I also know for a fact, Jez Corden said he heard the same thing back in, I think, November or December of last year. And at the time, everyone was like, "No, it's not true. Like, what are you talking about, bro?" But it seems like he may have actually heard that because now tons of people are reporting it. So the fact Jason Schreier's reporting it kind of gives it a lot of credibility in my mind. I just am confused about what the strategy, what the idea is here, because PlayStation has been, I don't want to say having massive success, but they've been having some success with bringing their PlayStation games to PC, usually 6 months, year, maybe longer, depending on the title. Um, I'm just, I didn't expect this. I thought it was, I thought they would lean more into PC. If anything, we've seen obviously on their showcases, a lot of their multiplayer games have PS5 and I know more Marvel Tokon. There's another one. There's probably a few on the recent showcase, but they've been more day and date with live service PC. Um, so I'm just a little confused because I assumed their single player strategy was going to remain the same. But what do you think it's saying? What was your reaction? How are we feeling if PlayStation does decide, hey, those single player games, those are only on PlayStation 5 now?
I mean, it's surprising, but I don't think it's necessarily inherently a bad idea. Like, I don't think there's any denying that a large number of their exclusives going over to PC haven't really done crazy well. And that could be for any multitude of reasons, right? There's not like there's one catch-all reason that X game didn't sell crazy well. Not that they've done awfully either. They've sold hundreds of thousands, I'm sure, and millions, obviously, in some cases, Helldivers and Spider-Man, I'm sure, is up there. But yeah, I would have thought that the strategy would continue as is. I don't know that it's really been, at least from the outside looking in, as deleterious, maybe as some people were thinking. But then you could argue, again, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Xbox, the same was kind of true with Xbox when they did it, where there wasn't really this immediate visible impact on people's engagement with the Xbox ecosystem. That came years later. And again, like I said, you could maybe argue that that detachment, that deprioritization, decentralization of the console around the entirety of the ecosystem kind of started with the PC push. That doesn't mean that there aren't upsides to porting, of course, because you're inherently going to get additional revenue that you wouldn't have had otherwise. But it's the risk versus reward of what do you stand to gain, what do you risk losing as a result. And I don't know, obviously we aren't in the business rooms, but I think there's maybe like a few points that I would make that could argue why they're doing this now. Obviously, like I said, that a number of the games didn't really sell crazy well. You could argue that's because they came late. You could say because the novelty has worn off, whatever. I could also say that, and obviously we've mentioned this, I don't know if this is actually true really, but people have said maybe it's to get ahead of the next Xbox, you know. One of the key selling points, I think, key in air quotes, would be that you can play PlayStation and Xbox games on the next Xbox via Steam or whatever, right? And maybe they don't want that to happen for one reason or another, and they are trying to, out of spite, I guess, deprive the competitor of a chance on the market with new hardware. I think as well, something that I haven't seen anybody else mention is that there was a period in time when Nintendo was far further away in the market than I think they are now. Where with the Switch 2, you've seen a massive improvement in third-party support. And that includes like big AAA games as well.
Cyberpunk, yeah.
And that wasn't really the case before. So I think that when we were talking about the Switch sort of filling a different portion of the market, it was true because most of the new games couldn't and therefore wouldn't ever be ported to the console, whereas that is now changed with Switch 2. And I think that that improvement in third-party support with big games coming day one to Switch. You know, we're about to see Resident Evil Requiem, and apparently it runs very well on Switch too, from what
Yeah, so
I've
I've heard.
seen. That alongside, again, Nintendo's exclusives, I think that that might have spooked Sony slightly, where, you know, Sony is trying to enter the handheld market as well. And I think that whether people agree with it or not, I think it's unrefutable that if you remove, as you said, if you remove exclusives from a piece of hardware, you are inherently depriving it of one additional reason to buy into that hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And with the components shortage, how tumultuous hardware has been, the delay of PlayStation 6 seemingly, I think Sony right now has every reason to incentivize, especially with GTA 6 on the horizon, incentivize people as much as possible to buy into PlayStation 5. And if that means you can only play Wolverine on PlayStation, or Saros, or Phantom Blade Zero. I mean, Phantom Blade Zero is probably coming to other consoles.
It's on PC too.
Sure. But you know what I mean? Like games of that ilk, if they could figure something out where there are permanent exclusives for the console, first party or second party or whatever, they kind of have a reason now. And I don't know that they would stand to lose too much. You know, they would lose, of course, as Xbox going back to exclusives, they cut off a revenue stream. But PlayStation is the de facto first place console. It's got the biggest install base. And therefore, I don't know that Sony, like, I think, I can't remember the exact percentage, but the percentage of additional revenue from software on PC and other platforms was accounted for like
I pulled it up. I have
1
yeah.
point something percent or something.
Yeah, so Steam's according to Linear Analytics, 1.5 billion from Steam.
Yeah.
And then the other half a billion was from Xbox platforms,
Which
would be
nothing.
MLB The Show and Helldivers.
Yeah.
Which I know people, I've seen some people, oh, well, the PlayStation's, I before this came out, I've seen people say, well, PlayStation's going multi-platform, which I don't think there's any evidence to support. Helldivers 2 is the biggest piece of evidence. People seem to think that meant floodgates were going to open. Hasn't been the case, because Death Stranding is owned by Kojima and published by 505. MLB forced them to put MLB everywhere, so like those aren't the same. The other one is Lego Horizon, which I would imagine Lego made them do something. That's not confirmed, but that game might as well have not been out anywhere at all, even including PlayStation, with the lack of sales that game got. So I think you bring up some really interesting points about if we pull back on the PC approach now and drive people more to our platform, we get them building their libraries here. We get PlayStation as their de facto console for not only right now, but PlayStation 6 when that comes out. I think that is a great thought that I didn't immediately come to, because my initial reaction was, well, they clearly don't want you playing their first party titles on the next Xbox because it's going to be a PC console hybrid. And I've seen some people mention the Steam Machine. I don't know how much they care about the Steam Machine, just because that's going to be a more niche device and they'll get revenue from that. But it kind of seemed like a little petty to me, if this is true. Hey, we don't want Xbox having our games, even if it is through another launcher, apparently. So, yeah, if we're just looking at what they've sold, according to Linea estimates, Spider-Man, not Spider-Man 2, just Spider-Man. So I don't know how old this is, but 2.7 million, Days Gone 3.4, God of War 4.2, Horizon 4.5, Helldivers had 2.7 at the time this graph was made, which I imagine has only gone up. I do think some of the novelty has worn off on these. Maybe that's why they're saying, hey, well, is it worth, is 2 more million copies of Spider-Man worth putting it on PC? And I think it was Logan was like, cost of porting could be too much right now when they don't need to. I worry about Nixxes then, because they bought
Sure.
Nixxes to port games to PC. They're a PC specialized studio. They're a port house. That's what they do. So if they really are pulling back on this strategy, hopefully Nixus then becomes a support studio or
Yeah.
something. Maybe I don't know how that works. Maybe they focus on the handheld or whatever, but I would worry for them if they do make some. I don't know if they'll even make an announcement or they'll just won't put their single player games on PC. And to be clear,
Mm.
this only says single player. Their live service
Yes.
multiplayer stuff very much still seems to be day and date, if anything, on PC. And maybe they have data to support that initiative, saying, "Hey, multiplayer is really the only thing we care about putting out here. The rest are for our brand." But I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not fully bought in that this is happening yet, but I think that I can, again, as I just laid out, I can see the reasons why they would be inclined to. Um, yeah, I understand people's hesitation around it of thinking like, well, are you really going to incentivize people to come into the ecosystem? Because, the argument is that if players are on PC and they're buying your games on PC, they weren't ever going to get a console anyway. But the flip side of that is that, again, with the hardware shortages and components going up in price and everything, that still by default technically makes console gaming the cheapest entry point. And PlayStation is already the de facto choice. So if somebody is having to choose between getting a PC, gaming PC, or a gaming laptop or something, or upgrading their specs of their existing build, or just buying a console, which they could probably get for cheaper or roughly around the same price, and then gain access to the PlayStation library. I mean, it's obvious that a captive single player, just one person that buys a PlayStation 5 and then spends money in the PlayStation Store is far more valuable to PlayStation than a person on PC who buys every single one of their releases on PC, because they aren't
Yeah,
captive.
they're only buying from that ecosystem, that
Exactly.
storefront. I think it's funny. A few months ago, we were talking about are they making a PC app, and now we're talking about are they taking their single player off. Daddy D Wally brings up a good question here. But again, Spider-Man 2 wasn't day one on PC. Are those numbers drastically different? If so, I that's a question that's hard to answer, I think, because we've never seen them actually do that, right? Like they've never put a first party single player title PC and PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4 for that matter.
Yeah, I
I
think
I imagine it does sell better personally. Like if I had to
sure,
I think it does sell better, yeah.
but I think as well, like love it or hate it, um, I still think that even though it's become far more westernized over the past decade or so, I still think that Sony and PlayStation have a lot of quite deeply ingrained Japanese sensibilities, and they are far more resistant to change. And I think that you consider how set in stone what Nintendo is doing is, and how it's always been that way. I think that there is an element of PlayStation know that if they went day and date with single player games on PC, they would make more money, they would sell more copies. But it's again, what is the trade off? And that's inside information that we wouldn't ever really be able to like
Yeah,
tangibly
it's
garner to a reasonable extent.
yeah, it's the question I've asked of Xbox where what is the what is the
The
brand
reason,
damage?
yeah.
Like how do you quantify that, like how much money you lost by not having exclusives by like I PlayStation is completely, PlayStation and PC. I don't know if I don't think if you're a PC gamer, I don't think you're going to buy a console. Like I don't think there is an overlap there. Like PC gamers are going to play on PC by and large. I'm sure some of like I have both. I'm sure there is that overlap, but most people I don't think will be like, oh, well, I guess I got to go get a PS5 now. They're just going to be like, I guess I'm not going to play Sony games now, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I don't know. That's how I see it, right? It is very interesting.
And I see Todd saying, again, a good point. Forza Horizon 6 isn't day and date on PS5, do we think that that will hurt its sales considering Horizon 5 sold so strongly? You're not wrong, but I also would say that things like that are the exception, not the rule. Because I also think that a number of Xbox titles have come out day and date on PlayStation 5 and still sold pretty poorly over the past year, and even worse after being delayed release. Because we've mentioned this before, of like, not that it ever would in retrospect, but a game like Redfall. Redfall was at that time, at some point in its development, in dev for PlayStation 5, and then that port was cancelled. If that released day and date, you would have had pre-orders on PlayStation. You would have had much higher day one engagement on the game for sure.
Todd brings up that with Forza Horizon 6, it's not
That,
day
yeah,
and
that's
date
that's
on
that's what I'm
PS5.
referring to.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. I thought you were
No,
talking
no,
about
it's all good.
something else.
And it's like, well, you wouldn't want to port Redfall over anyway because it's trash. But like, if it was a okay game, let's say it was a 7, if you're delaying the launch on PlayStation 5, it can come out and it will probably still sell decently enough. But
Starfield would have sold more if it was
sure.
on
But
PlayStation.
the problem becomes that if the game gets reviews and it's just sort of middling, or it's like it's fine, it's not like an amazing thing that you have to jump out and play day one, you're not going to get a massive influx of day one sales when it comes late to PlayStation. So when Todd brings up Forza Horizon 6, like, we know that game's going to be great because Forza Horizon 5 was great. And we don't doubt that it will review very well. So when it comes to PlayStation, it's going to be a high 80s, low 90s Metacritic game, highly reviewed, loved by pretty much everyone. So it's going to have that to carry itself and all of the hype talking about it post-launch, which is why we're worried about the pressure on internal studios to deliver if they aren't releasing day and date on other platforms. So
it is interesting how that initial word of mouth could actually be detrimental
yeah,
to if you're not day and day, if you're not exclusive. Well, if you're exclusive, if you're a timed exclusive, and then you come out and you're good, great, mediocre, like that's going to impact sales if you go elsewhere. And I think we've seen that with Xbox's multi-platform strategy. And maybe that's what PlayStation doesn't want to deal with. Maybe they think, hey, if we lock it up, that we don't have to worry about a perception. Like, we're going to get our sales. We don't have to worry about the perception of, oh, well, I'll wait for it to come and everything that goes along with that. So I don't know, man. It's interesting.
if they take a stance, that if you want to play Wolverine, you have to get a PlayStation. You don't have to like that fact, but that's how they would operate their business. And if that means that if they've done the internal calculations, and that means that they have a healthier ecosystem on the whole, without trading off things and risking future stuff, then I would support it. In the same way that I would support it for Xbox if the internal calculations meant that being fully console exclusive was best for them, which I'm not convinced it is at all. I think it could be for PlayStation. I think obviously they are on completely opposite ends of the market. So the situation, the circumstances, the context are very different. But time will tell. I'm not convinced this is happening yet, but
I'm
obviously a
more
lot of
convinced
people,
because Schreier's saying it.
that's what, like, enough people who have good track records are saying that something's happening. I
But
wonder
will
to
we
what
ever know?
extent.
Will PlayStation come out and say, you know what, guys, no more, no more single player games on PC? I feel like they wouldn't. I feel like we're just gonna, if they're doing something, we're just not gonna see them.
Yeah, I think they'll just stop,
Yeah,
and
let's
we'll
stop doing it. Yeah,
learn
yeah.
tangentially through Schreier or something.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. Like, again, multiplayer still fully expect to see those on the showcases, but it clearly isn't. I think this applies to first party studios because I knew the Kana game is
Yes.
PC day and date, but that's a second party, whatever, third party. I don't know their publishing agreement, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But That is all we have for tonight's show. Our longest episode ever, coming in at almost 2.5 hours. So thank you everyone in the chat for hanging out with us. You have been wonderful with your questions, your comments, your discussions in the chat. Love all of you so much. If you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe if you are new to the channel. Sam, where can people find you until next week?
People can find me screaming into a pillow about AI. But otherwise, they can find me at Sam Heaney, Heaney.
Okay. You can find me at the Muffin Mon everywhere. It's a 1-7I, O-7A. Follow us at Save the Game Media over on Blue Sky to stay up to date all our latest content. Until next week, we will see you